Good morning, everyone. I'm Tony, and we're live from New Brunswick at my mother-in-law's house. We were trying to get on the Creekside Chronicles, but we could not, so we are going to do our Creekside Chronicles on Creekside Maples channel this morning. Hope that's okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Tony. We're just going to wait for everyone to find it, and hopefully notifications will come up. I'm going to make a couple of announcements here. Hey Shane at Great Farmer, we're doing good. Hey Rebecca, how are you? So wonderful to have Rebecca here. And Lisa, good morning. And again, as you see, this is on the Creekside Maples channel through my GoPro. So if you see me looking down somewhat, it's because I'm looking on my phone as well as trying to look into the camera and read comments and read some scriptures and things like that. So we're just going to try to do what we can do. Good morning, Scott. How are you, my friend? Elizabeth, good morning to you. I got to turn my volume down here because I can hear myself talk, so I have to turn it down. I'm on a delay, the delay on my phone versus live, so there's about 30 seconds there, so it's going to be a little bit difficult to do this. And I've got to find a way to set my phone up so I can actually look at the phone and look at you guys and see everything as well. So it'd be great if I could figure that out. But this is all new. Trying to get this together. Good morning, Elizabeth. Good morning, Mike. How are you? A friend from Indiana. Lifetime friends with Mike and his lovely, lovely wife and family. And everybody else that's in here, we appreciate you coming in. And again, we're on the Creekside. Yeah, you can see my phone there. I just noticed, because I'm watching a preview as well in my phone, and I can see what you see. So forgive the phone. I know I'm looking down. I want to see if I can find a way to set it up. Just give me a second here, folks. If I could find a way to perch this up on something, it'll be a lot better. So if you'll give me a minute, we're going to get started here in just a bit, but I'm going to try to find a way that I can put my phone up on there so I can actually look at you and read things as well. Hey Tim, how are you? And Jesse, good morning to you, sir. Glad to have you always, you and Lisa, always so faithful in what you do to help us. So, yeah. So as you can tell, we're on Creekside Maples, not Creekside Chronicles, because the Creekside Chronicles channel is not monetized. I could not utilize the GoPro and my phone to allow us to go live through Creekside Chronicles, so we're just doing it through here this morning. Hey Sam, how are you? So just to update everyone, we're out traveling. We have looked at one piece of land yesterday. We are videoing everything, so you'll see updates this week through video of where we're at with finding some new land, finding a new homestead. We're looking at hopefully a couple more pieces today, and go from there. That's all we can do, trusting God to find us, the right place. I feel that God has given me a picture in my mind and my spirit, my heart, and when I see that come to fruition in the locality, the actual geographical location, when I see that picture, then I'll know that this is the right place. But we're just trying to be patient and trust God with it all. That's all we can do, because there's a lot on the table here. So, but anyway, hopefully you can hear me well. Is the picture okay? Is the sound okay? Just let me know. Again, forgive me for looking down quite a bit, but I'm looking at my phone so that I can follow in comments the same time that I'm talking to you guys. I cannot see anything through the GoPro, obviously, but I can see you on my phone, so I should have gotten some kind of phone holder. But again, this is the first time I've done it this way. So, it's working though. It gives us a good clear picture through the GoPro. But yeah, so hopefully everyone's having a good weekend. You'll hear a little noise here and there, a little tack, tack, tack. That's the dog walked across the floor. His toenails are tapping on the hard floor, but it's all good. Just they're in the living room there and laying around as dogs do. We're going to talk a little bit more about Joshua and the story. Thank you, Mike. In the story in Joshua chapter 1 and chapter 2, we may even get to chapter 3. I'm not sure today. But there's some interesting stuff there that I want to leave with you. And I'm not going to, spend a lot of time because the battery in the GoPro dies quickly. And we have some appointments we have to get to and all that sort of thing. But we're going to give it our best shot here this morning just to leave us with a little something. We just want to, stay connected to everybody. At this time, it's a very busy time for us. We're not only trying to move, we're trying to find a place to move to, we're trying to get things packed, we're trying to, at the same time, still continue to mill some lumber so that we can at least have some semblance of some kind of income to help, to pay the cost of the move. It's a very expensive cost, and now gas just went up again, so now we're at $10 a gallon, and that is not cheap. It's ridiculous. But it's all good. So I'm going to I'm not going to be able to respond to your comments because I won't be able to see them for a minute. So I'm just going to go to my Bible app. Forgive me for looking down. And I'm going to go to Joshua. And we're going to go to chapter 2. And if you hear some talking in the background, forgive me. I am at my mother-in-law's house. Joni's here and Judy's here. So it is what it is. Let me see here. Joshua, and we're going to chapter 2. There we go. And here comes the dog. And in Joshua chapter 2, I'm not going to read the whole chapter, but you can see it's an interesting chapter. There's a lot going on. And what has happened now is Joshua, as we talked about last week, Joshua is now the leader of Israel. And there is, it's about 1.2, 1.3 million Israelites at this time now. So Joshua has his hands full. And last week we talked how the Lord encouraged Joshua and told him to go forth, go forward, and take the land that God has gone before him, that every place the sole of his foot shall tread, or every step he takes, it says that the Lord has given him that land. And so we feel that that has a huge application to our life right now, for sure. And there's enemies in the land. You have to understand that the land that Joshua is going into, what we call the promised land, it's already occupied. It's not vacant land. It's occupied by, Amalekites and Ishmaelites and Hittites and all of these different tribes of people and cities. And so it's not an easy undertaking, but life never is. There's always something that can complicate life. But God told Joshua, he said that if you're willing to go, if you'll take that step, if you will have faith, he said, I'll go with you. There'll not be anybody that will be able to stand before you. And God promises that to Joshua, that I will give you this land. And so for me, sometimes in life, we just have to be willing to take that step. And I know this is very applicable to us today, because we're taking steps and we don't know where they're leading. We don't know where we're going to end up. We don't know where our new land is. We don't know where our new homestead is. But God's just simply saying, do you have faith enough to trust me enough that when you walk, when you take those steps, that I am with you? And I think that's a challenge to so many of us sometimes in life, because how many of you listening today have had those times where, do I go left or right? Do I go forward? Do I just wait? What do I do? Because you're not sure. And it would be great if God sent us emails and explained and expressed to us everything that he has for us, but then we wouldn't have faith. Faith is trusting when it's dark and you can't see and you don't know where you're going. Faith is not tried in easy times, but in adversities. And that's what God really does sometimes. He just allows us to get to these places that are so adverse environmentally and physically and emotionally, spiritually, that he's saying, do you trust me enough? And he may be asking you that question today. When will you trust God enough to let him do what he does best? And he challenged me on this yesterday. When will you trust me to look after your future? When will you trust me? Because we all like to say we trust God, and I'm preaching to me today. We all like to say we trust God, but the truth of it is, when we're up against the wall, when we can't see the hand in front of our face, when life becomes so dark, when chaos has gripped us and everything is upended, then we start questioning, and then we start struggling with our faith. We all do. There's not one of us, we're not superhuman people here. We all have these same struggles. But God is asking today, when will you trust him with your life, with everything you have? And so Joshua now has to cross the Jordan. He has to go into the promised land. He does not know what he's facing. He just knows that it's going to be tough. And the first place that he comes to is this big city called Jericho. And he sends spies. That's where chapter 2 starts out. Joshua, the son of Nun, sent out of Shittim 2 men to spy secretly, saying, go view the land, Jericho. So they went. They came to, of all places, a harlot's house. Never take for granted what God can do through the most pitiful situations and people. Named Rahab, and these guys, lodged there. In verse 2 it says, it was told the king of Jericho, saying, behold, there came men in hither tonight of the children of Israel to search out the country. And the king of Jericho sent unto Rahab, saying, bring forth the men that are come to thee, which are entered into thine house, for they be come to search out all the country. Now it's amazing to me that the king of Jericho sent to Rahab. So the king is on a first name basis basically with her, looks like. He knows exactly who she is, where her house is. So I wonder sometimes if maybe the king knew where she was, because maybe the king had called on her a few times. But anyway, the king shows up, or his guards do, and they're looking for these men, these spies that Joshua has sent into the city. But this woman Rahab took the 2 men and hid them, and said, there came men unto me, but I wist not whence they were. And it came to pass about the time of the shutting of the gate, when it was dark, that the men went out. Whither the men went, I don't know. So she's telling this to the king. I don't know where they're at. They were here, but they're gone now. And then she plays it up and says, you better go after them quickly to catch them. But what she had done in verse 6, it says, now this is a harlot, okay, in Jericho. She brought them up to the roof of the house and hid them with the stalks of flax. Or in other words, the roof, she hid them under the flax stalks on top of the roof. And so the men pursued after them the way to Jordan unto the fords, and they never caught them. Yes, I know, Jesse, I said fords because that's what it says. It's not talking of the vehicle, it's talking about the water. Anyway, she came up after the king's men left. She came up to these 2 guys. She said unto them, I know that the Lord had given you this land. Now look at it. That's so interesting to me. This is a harlot living a life of debauchery on the top of the wall of Jericho, by the way, which is so thick, it says, the history says that they could race chariots side by side along the top of this wall. It was that big. And this woman, who doesn't have an ounce of spirituality, you wouldn't think, but she looks at them and says, I know this. God has given you this land, and your terror is fallen upon us, and that all the inhabitants of the land faint because of you. What an interesting story. It's not the kind of people that you would want to go associate with, because you'd be worried about your reputation. But I'm glad that God uses the people that no one else would think to use. I'm glad God speaks to the people that no one else would want to speak to. I'm glad that God is no respecter of persons. I'm glad that God doesn't look on our lives and dismiss us because of the errors we've made or the sin that we've lived in. I'm glad that God can look at us and go, you know what? I know you're maybe doing this right now, but I've got a job for you, and I'm going to change your life, and I'm going to help you out, and I'm going to bless you beyond degree. Because you see, we as people write people off. We as people, we select, hand select, like we're picking for the team. And if you look good enough and smell good enough and strong enough and intelligent enough, and all those things play into it. And I understand that, we all do it. And so those are the ones that gets picked for the team. But God looks at the harlots, and God looks at the homeless, and God looks at the hungry. God looks at the broken. God looks at the poor. God looks at people the same. It doesn't matter if you're on Skid Row or you're in the mansion on the hill. It doesn't matter to God, because God looks at us all the same way through eyes of love. And so he's willing to use people that nobody else would use. And that's what he's doing for this woman Rahab. It's interesting to me that the person that you wouldn't think to be able to recognize what God is doing is the only person that recognizes what God is doing. Ever have somebody just walk up and give you a word from God or whatever, and you look at it and go, I would have never thought I would have heard that from them? That's what's happening here. Because she says, we've heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea, and how you came out of Egypt, and what you did to the kings of the Amorites. She's heard these things, and she says, our hearts have melted. There's no more courage in Jericho because of you. For the Lord your God, he is God in heaven and above, and earth beneath. But then she says this, I pray you, swear unto me by the Lord, since I've showed you kindness, you will show kindness unto my father's house, and give me a true token, that you will save alive my father, my mother, my brother, and my sisters, and all they have, and deliver our lives from death. And the man answered, our lives for yours, if you utter not our business. Don't tell anybody about us. And she let them down through a cord through the window, for her house was upon the town wall, and she dwelt upon the wall. She said to them, go to the mountains and hide yourselves there. And that's what the men did. But what is interesting here is that she lives on the town wall, and she is concerned. Now watch, she doesn't say, salvage me. She says, I'm trying to make sure my parents are going to be okay. This is a harlot. This is a prostitute. And now you've got to understand, in the day back then, that they weren't looked on nicely. They were the worst of the worst, basically. And they were forced to live in places where, they could hide and in the red light district, so to speak. But isn't it amazing that here it is, God's using her. But not only that, she recognizes that God is in this. There's something to be said for the individuals that their life is chaotic, but yet they can still recognize God's handiwork. Now, I don't know about you, but I know our life's been chaotic for the last few weeks. And sometimes we can get distracted. Sometimes we can lose focus. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I've always, kept faith right forefront and always never lost sight of who God is and all that. Because in the last few weeks, we've had our own questions, and we've had our struggles, and we've asked God what's going on, and where are we going, and how this is going to turn out. We've been there, and we all have. But sometimes it's amazing to me just how, no matter where you're at in your life, you can still step back for a minute and recognize that God's working in this. And for us, that's where we're at now. I spoke this, I told Jesse yesterday, I said, I've gotten through the initial gut-wrenching emotional roller coaster of surprise and absolute depleted energy and faith and all that. And now we're back up, and I'm going, okay, this is a new adventure. Let's do this. And it's where to, God, order our steps. But I'll tell you what, that's not easy to do sometimes, because life has a way of shutting our faith down if we let it. It can get so tough sometimes. But that's where you have to stand back up, even in the midst of it all, and recognize, but God's at work here. I don't know how, I don't know where, I don't know when, but I know that He'll do it again. The song says, you may be down and feel like God has somehow forgotten, that you're faced with circumstances that you can't get through. But then it talks about how we've proven God time and time and time again. And you have too. Many of you have seen God's handiwork. Every morning we step outside, whether it's rainy or the sun shining, we can view God's handiwork. You've seen it in the miracles and things and stuff that's taken place in your own lives, and we view God's handiwork. And so sometimes, no matter how chaotic it can get, we have to recognize God's in this. And that's what's amazing to me about this harlot, this prostitute, is that of all the people to recognize God's handiwork, it's her. No one else in this city. And so she hides these spies, and they go back to Joshua, and they tell him that, man, this is an impossibility. It's a great land, but there's this huge wall around this city. How will we ever take it? How will we ever gain access? And the truth of it is, it's not for us to find out how. That's God's going to do it. We just have to obey. And so God tells Joshua, the craziest scheme ever. You're not going to fight with swords and spears and all that stuff, but you're going to march around this city 6 times. You're not going to say a word. You're just going to march. And yes, they're going to laugh at you. And yes, there's going to be some that just don't believe in you. But that's life. But then he says, on the 7th day, I want you to march around 6 times on that 7th day. So if you take the 6 times you've gone around it once per day for 6 days, that's 6 trips. Now on this 7th day, I want you to march around it 6 times the same way, quietly. Don't say anything. So that's 12 trips around. But then he said, on the 7th time around, on this 7th day, God's perfect number, I want you to shout, and I want you to break these pictures, earthen vessels, and blow the trumpets, and watch what I do. Crazy as it sounds, that's what you have to do. Because sometimes faith gets crazy. Sometimes faith, the things that we have to do with our faith is absurd. But it's that crazy faith that changes everything. It truly is. All things are possible with God. And so that's what Joshua does. And they march around the city. And on the 7th trip around, on the 7th day, they shout so loud, it's like an earthquake. And the city walls begin to tremble. And all of it comes down. But don't miss the fact that Rahab's house is on that city wall. And she has a promise that it will not be shaken nor harmed. So you picture that. Everything around her, everything around Rahab is shaking and shuddering and falling. Everything around her is quaking and coming down and being destroyed. She is surrounded by chaos. But yet her and her house and the family she got into her house is still standing strong because she recognized God's hand is in this. When everything else around us is quaking, when everything else around us is falling apart, when everything else is dying and the screams of anguish and fear, when the rubble is piling up all around us, it's that faith that God's working this out that'll keep us strong. And when all else is destroyed, Rahab emerges from her home, dusts herself off. Yeah, she was afraid. You can be guaranteed she had fear. You can be guaranteed she was wondering, do they remember the promise they made to me? You can be guaranteed that her family was scared to death because everything else is falling apart. Are they going to fall apart? Is their house going to fall apart? Is their lives going to be destroyed? What's going to happen? But when it all settled, it says that they came and they found Rahab. And it's so interesting. If you follow the lineage of Rahab, she is found in Matthew chapter 1, chapter 2. In the lineage, in the heritage, in the bloodline of Jesus Christ. Because she married an Israelite that came into that city. It's all in history. I don't have time to get into all of that. But isn't that amazing? She goes from harlot to heroine. Not the drug, the hero of the story. She goes to be part of the lineage of Jesus Christ through the bloodline that she marries into. I don't know about you, but this has really spoke to me because I realize that right now everything around us can be shaking. You look at the world today, war and rumors of war. Look what's happening all across the globe. You got Ukraine situation and Russia. You've got all of that going on. The Taiwan, the Chinese. You've got North Korea sending off missiles. You've got fuel prices that are so high that people cannot survive. There's no way that this is sustainable. Not here. People can't afford this. There's no way. It's not possible. All of this is happening. Pandemics, disease, people dying, all of these things. The American flag was at half-mast a few days ago because of 1 million people that have died apparently from the COVID virus. All these things are happening. There's upheaval against everything that's godly and everything that's pure and everything that's good. It's being tossed to the wayside. Everything that can be shaken is shaking. But in the middle of it all, there's your faith, there's my faith, there's your God, there's our God. One God. And He is there. And if we will recognize His hand in our lives, if we will recognize the truth of faith and the strength of persevering and moving on, God's going to work it out. He's going to work it out in your life. He's going to work it out in my life. And yes, we'll have days where we feel weak. And yes, we'll have fear. And yes, we'll have doubts. And yes, we'll sometimes speak questions and things that aren't so becoming of faith-filled people some days. But the truth of it is, God's going to bring us through. And I know in Joni and I, in our lives right now, we are facing a mountain. A mountain. But I know this, God's already been to the mountain. God's already standing there going, because He's Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. And so He's with us when this whole thing started, but He's standing at the end and He's beckoning us. Come on, I've got an answer for you. I've got your new homestead. I've got the finances, people in place that are going to help you. I've got all of that. Don't worry about it. What I need you to do is just keep your faith and stay strong. And whether you're facing that kind of situation or a health situation or a relationship issue or a job-related issue, whatever you're facing, maybe it's surgery or maybe it's a court date or maybe whatever. Somebody may be listening from behind bars. I don't know, but I know this. Whatever the mountain is, whatever stands in front of us, God is going to move it. He's going to cause it to crash down and tumble and fall. And He will bless us with great, great blessings if we'll keep our faith. And that's what we have to do. That's what we're doing. Please pray for us that on those days we feel weak, we can feel the prayers of our friends that are supporting us. And we'll do the same for you. God's got this. He's got you. He's holding you in His hand. It's going to be okay. I don't know how. Yesterday when we started looking at land, the first place we went and looked at, all of a sudden I was so just overcome for a few moments of the magnitude of the mountain in front of us. To go to a new place and and build a home for us. But not only that, to get the land first, to get it paid for, and then get stuff on site to start building. It's monumental. It's a huge task. And not only doing it, it's one thing if you're just doing it a few miles away, but we're traveling 6.5 hours with our truck and our trailer, and it takes so much fuel. There's so many reasons to fear, but yet I'm going to keep praising God. I'm going to keep giving Him glory. I'm going to keep trusting Him because He knows what this will take to make it happen. When those Israelites crossed that Jordan River and walked into the promised land, there was no surprises for God. He knew exactly what they were faced. He knew there was a huge wall in their way. He knew all of those things before they ever stepped into that promised land. But He already had an anecdote. He already had an answer. He already knew what He was going to do. And He did it for them. And He'll do it for you. And He'll do it for me. And He'll continue to do it no matter what. He's got this. He truly has got this. So pray for us that we stay faithful, that we stay strong, and we'll do the same for you. Thanks. I'm sorry that this is a little different today. I'm just sitting here in the sun porch here in a little place called Birch Corner, New Brunswick, in my mother-in-law Judy's house. And we're just here, and everyone else is sipping coffee or doing whatever. But hey, friends, family, Creekside crew, we're so glad you're here. And sorry if, a little bit of confusion there at the beginning. I know I'm on Creekside Maples and not Creekside Chronicles. But again, I couldn't get over on the Chronicles page because it's not monetized. So apparently it wouldn't let me do that through YouTube. But we're good. It's all going good. And so we're going to get some breakfast. We're going to head out and look at some more properties. Please pray that we find the one God has for us, and then we find, the finances and the wherewithal to get everything in place to make everything good. Take care, everyone. Thanks for watching. Appreciate everyone that found us here. Y'all have a great day, and there's a video coming out. It'll be out this week. Watch it. It shows you, it's day one. It's what we're calling it, and it's showing you the progression of our search for our new homestead, and we're going to show you everything from the great days to the days where we're just down and out and dirty and depressed or depleted of energy, whatever. You're going to see it all, and so stay with us on the journey. And then once we get the land and get going on it and clearing it and building on it, it's going to be a wild ride. But this is the great adventure. And this is the path that God has chosen for us to walk in right now. He has a way. And He has a way for your life as well. So take care, everybody. God bless you. Thank you, everyone, for being here this morning. And we shall see you Tuesday night on our live stream, 8 o'clock. We'll have more updates then, and then videos through the week. God bless everybody. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. And again, if you would like to support the channel or support our homestead or anything, you can do it through PayPal and do it through the family and friends, I guess, tab or whatever, and that will work it all out so that that all makes it to the homestead. And I guarantee you everything coming in is being used on the property so that we can get new property and all of that. That's what it has been designated for. So I know many of you are waiting on us to show you the property, and we are too. When we get there, when we find the right one, we'll let you know, and then it's onward from there. But until then, my heart will go on singing. Until then, with joy we carry on. Take care. Everyone that's in here, can I say hello to Lynette, Copy Angel Crafts, and Paul? Good morning to Paul, Bearded Carpenter. Corrine Davis, Family Life, Mike Pierce, thank you so much. That is true, Mike Pierce, for sure. Tim, Dave, and Sandy. So many folks that are here this morning. God bless you all. And we will be talking to you all soon. And God bless. We'll see you right back here at Creekside. wherever that may be coming from, but we'll get it straightened out and we'll see you. Take care, everyone. And now I got to figure out how to shut this off because I'm not sure. We'll figure it out. Bye for now.